Great, there's the green flag, and there come the 5 red lights for the jewel in the crown of Formula 1. And it's lights out, and away we go, and it looks like Aiden Jackson's got a good start, and he will lead going to Sandbox. Charles Leclerc, did he get the little side for Verstappen there? I think he did. We've cut to the back. We've all gone through Sandbox completely unscathed by the look of it. Very good when well behaved at turn 1. Did Charles beat Verstappen? He did. Charles Leclerc has beaten Verstappen into Sandbox, and now he is third, and that is crucial for the championship. The Ferraris and the Red Bull in particular will have a massive car advantage over the Audi, so all they really need to do is stick with Aiden Jackson. They don't need to take any risks. There's Max Verstappen trying to move somewhere. I believe he's round the outside of Charles Leclerc. That is crucial for the championship, and he's got it. And here comes Aiden Jackson, and that is a call to the hard tyres. Here's Charles Leclerc round the inside. Jackson just having no traction over the last 2 corners. Here today, Carlos Sainz has not put a foot wrong. He wins his 2nd Grand Prix of his career, the sweetest of all. It's the Monaco Grand Prix. Carlos Sainz wins the 2022 Monaco Grand Prix, an absolutely controlled drive. All we had to do was wait for Hamilton to pit, Jackson to pit rather. Max Verstappen increases his championship lead over Charles Leclerc. Well, here we are then. This year's Azerbaijan Grand Prix was marked by the teams most suffering from the poor physical effect of these new cars as the weekend where their worst fears would be realised due to the final sector, in particular the length of the start-finish straight. And to say they were was an understatement. After free practice 1, Lewis Hamilton was reported to be suffering from back strain after a long run, while the Audis of Jackson and Hulkenberg had to lift off as the bouncing was so bad it was damaging the underfloor, and many of those with less porpoising felt increased effects. And that was the talk that dominated the weekend, so much so that Jackson's 2nd consecutive pole position went almost unnoticed yesterday, until the gap was seen to be 0.590 ahead of Carlos Sainz as they once again start on the front row together. Aaron Hillwood, despite their issues with the porpoising though, hopes are high at Audi that Jackson may finally score their first win, and that's considering the strength of the Audi aerodynamically. Oh, they're not the only ones, Chaos. I think I speak for everyone when I say we're all hoping Jackson can pull this off, and it would be the cherry on top of this incredible run that Audi are on at the moment, and the morale is particularly high after the announcement earlier this week of their brand partnership with Grid World Series outfit Connosport, set to begin in 2023 when the team becomes Audi Connosport. Of course, Connosport was founded in 2004 by Andre O'Connor as an equipment brand for the top tennis players at the time. But in 2008, he turned his real passion motorsport by entering the Grid World Series, competing against Audi and Ryan McCain's outfit Raven West Motorsport. Andrea was adamant the whole time that Formula 1 was the ultimate dream. Audi pulled out of the series in 2020 to start focusing on their Formula 1 ventures, leaving Raven West and Connosport to dominate from there on out, particularly Raven West with Ryan's nephew Nathan leading the charge. At the start of this season, they dipped their toes into Formula 1, so to speak, Raven West that is, by giving Audi their pit crew members Chris Weidman and Rob D as part of a small personnel deal. Connosport, meanwhile, will come in as a brand partner to Audi next year, along with their title sponsor, Butler Global, giving them a huge cash injection. And to sweeten the deal even further, Connosport's starred athlete, California Mayor, will be added to Audi's development program. For those that are unaware, which is probably very few of you at this point, considering her stellar performances in Formula 2 so far this season, Callie, as she prefers to be called, is the sister of Aiden Jackson, and she's had a very similar career path to her brother by winning the Formula 3 championship with Trident last season, and then of course making the step up to Formula 2 with the same team. Most importantly of all though, is that she possesses the same ultra-aggressive driving style with jaw-dropping overtaking manoeuvres and the same resilience and determination as her brother Aiden, and she's very quickly becoming a true trailblazer for aspiring female racers. Watch this space though, because Macali is most certainly more than just part of the Jackson family tree. And after all that, well, let's get back to today's race. And it certainly would be poetic for Aiden Jackson to win at the track where he made his arrival as a star, so to speak, last season. This track has suited Audi's aero push down the straights, and even looks the best in the corners that it has all season. We know that Ferrari is the best overall package, and Red Bull particularly is strongest in a straight line, but Jackson is most certainly in the hunt for this race. It's definitely the most unpredictable of the season so far. What a trap for it. Thank you as always, Aaron. Well, the Baku City Circuit made its debut in 2016 as the European Grand Prix. And whereas the debut race was a procession win for Mercedes and Nico Rosberg, every race since has been an absolute classic. On this lap, on board of the Mercedes of George Russell, paying particular attention to the start-finish straight, as the ugliness of the porpoising effect really shows itself.
Here we are for the Baku City Circuit. Down the start-finish straight, you'll obviously see more of the porpoising event as George Russell picks up the pace at the end of his qualifying lap. And as we said just there, we're actually signaling the Mercedes here because they've been the worst of porpoising this weekend, especially with Hamilton suffering back strain at the end of practice sessions. And here we are for the qualifying lap. Of course, it's not quite finished yet. We do all know that Jackson will take pole in the end from Carlos Sainz right at the end as we head into turn 3. And turn 4. This is actually the most tricky part of the circuit, but of course coming up is the infamous castle section, which everybody kind of touted as very accident-prone races, especially in F2 that year, and then 2016 tended to be a rather procession. But let's say these are the best races in the world at that point, and obviously mistakes would be minimal, and here it comes. The infamous section. It is a very, very tight section, to be fair. We've known Charles Leclerc to quote, "I am stupid," back in his early Ferrari days, of course, and now we are onto the third sector, the fastest sector probably in Formula 1, just a bit of a left kick here before a big braking zone. You can pretty much take this almost flat in this current gen of F1 cars, and now here we go, the final real corner on the track. There will be a little kink to the left and right to end the lap, but it's pretty much full throttle. Pretty much all the way. If you've got the right car, you can literally be full throttle all the way through here. And even here on this outlap, you can see George already bouncing with his head, and that is a lap really at the Baku City Circuit, and a view that porpoising is something that really needs to be taken seriously. Look at that. Audi Sport F1 team have already achieved so much in their first 7 races as a Formula 1 outfit. The last thing they need to achieve is a Grand Prix win, and here today could be their best chance. Aiden Jackson is going from his 2nd consecutive pole position, and the Audi has been one of the strongest cars this weekend. Could this finally be the day where Audi become Grand Prix winners in Formula 1? It would certainly cap off this magnificent run and their most recent partnership with Sport, set to start in 2023. Commentary from the round 8 of the 2022 season for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. As always, it's from Aaron Henwood. Thank you, Kios. Good afternoon, everyone. A warm welcome to the 8th round of this already enthralling season, which has had so many stories and twists and turns. We could be going down to the last race before we find out the full picture. Here we are for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, 3.7 miles rather, and 20 corners, and a lot of talk about porpoising this weekend with the long straights. So much so that it almost overshadowed the fact that Aiden Jackson is going from his 2nd consecutive pole position, beating Sainz by half a second. And as Chaos said, it's been a magnificent run for Audi, and morale is high with their recent partnership with Connosport announced to begin in 2023. It would certainly prove here today that Connosport made the right choice if Aiden Jackson can convert this pole into a win. This is his best chance, and of course Jackson already knows how to win races. He won at Monza last year. Let's go from the back then of the grid and give you the rundown then. Nicholas Latifi and Lance Stroll, as to probably be expected at this point, on the back row once again, followed by their teammates of Alex Albon and Sebastian Vettel. Mick Schumacher, Zhou Guanyu and Valtteri Bottas and Kurt Magnussen from 15 to 18 as the Haas and Alfa Romeos continue to disappoint really, followed by the AlphaTauri pair of Tsunoda and Gasly. Esteban Ocon is 12th, followed by Nico Hulkenberg, and into the top 10 we go with Ricciardo and George Russell. Lando Norris is 8th, then behind Fernando Alonso and Charles Leclerc, the championship contender, in 6th. Lewis Hamilton's 5th, behind the Red Bulls of Perez and Verstappen. With their straight line speed advantage, they'll look on to pounce on the front row of, once again, as it was at Monaco, Carlos Sainz and Aiden Jackson. Well, here last year, Aiden Jackson announced himself to the world of Formula One as a star of the future by a magnificent performance in a very underpowered and underperforming Haas team, with a car that was really due to underperform anyway, given their circumstances. He narrowly missed out on a points finish after being passed by Gasly late on. I think he was further demoted to 12th or 13th by the end of the race. Here this year, it's a very different story. He's going from the front, and Audi have a very strong car in a straight line. The question he will have is how will he be able to defend against the awesome straight line speed of both Verstappen, the championship leader, and his teammate Sergio Perez. He'll certainly be grateful for the fact that Sainz is alongside him. What Jackson needs to do is get away from the front lead and hopefully try and get away as quickly as possible. But as we've seen already this season, the Audi is not the fastest car on the grid this year, and they are certainly lacking in terms of the Ferrari and the Red Bull. But Audi, despite their porpoising, have looked very, very strong this weekend. It's probably been their strongest weekend in terms of car performance, as with the not lack of corners, but lacking of corners around this circuit. It's not really a lack of corners, but there are less for the diva Audi to deal with than at other circuits. So that's really helped Jackson out, because he has been struggling with the handling of his car all season with this car. And well, their not their acquisition, but their partnership, kind of sporting-wise with Connosport, certainly could be a boost for next year, especially with the money coming in from Butler Global as well. This may not be the last time we see this car at the front of the grid. 2023 could really be a telling year. It'll be Audi's second year in the sport. They will be still called Audi, but they'll be rather Audi Connosport as opposed to Audi F1 team that they are right now. But the question is, will they become a race winner before then and prove to Connosport that they made the right choice? Certainly would be a very poetic situation, as we said earlier, for Jackson, as he announced himself to the world in F1 here last season with a fantastic start and scrapping for points right to the end. Aiden Jackson knows how to lead. He knows how to win races. He won at Monza last year. Can he be the first winner for Audi Sport F1 team? We're about to find out. Many variables. Could we have finally a new winner? Here's the 5 red lights. The green flag is at the back. You know what happens now. It's lights out, and away we go, go, go. And it looks like Sainz has got a much better start of the line, and there's Verstappen as well, down the inside of Jackson. He didn't look like he got off very well, but he's going to recover in the second over the corner, and it looks like he's going to go around the outside, and he looks like a better sector. Back into the lead goes Jackson. Fantastic start. We go 4 wide. It's a turn 2. It's an almighty tussle to get some space, and we all got through amazingly. And I think that was Alex Albon on the inside. Yes, it was, with Vettel and one of the Alfa Romeos at Zhou Guanyu, who's fallen further behind than he started. The Alfa Romeo is not having a great start to this race, and we've cut away back to the front. There's Lewis Hamilton battling with Alonso then. So Alonso had a great start. He's up to 5th. Charles Leclerc is down to 7th, and that's not good because his championship rival Max Verstappen is up into 3rd. He's passed Perez already, so I think he was ahead of Perez anyway. But that's exactly what Jackson needed. He's leading for the front. He actually recovered to be size. Oh my word! Holy dive bomb from Yuki Tsunoda there. And down the inside of Hulkenberg, and that's not great for Hulkenberg, down to 13th place already. And if Jackson does win this race, we had to put a dark cloud over Hulkenberg because it's not really been his fault. But I wonder if questions will be asked, because Nico Hulkenberg hasn't really scored since Bahrain, and Jackson's been getting podiums and is leading this race, and is the best chance for Audi to win one this year. So if he does pull this off, will questions be asked of Hulkenberg? We hate to bring it up because it's not really been Nico's fault, let's be honest. He's had engine failures and been really stuck in DRS trains for most of the time, but he's not scored since Bahrain. I wonder if that will be discussed. And I think I heard a wall hit there from someone. I don't know if it was Jackson, but if it was, he might have to replace his front wing. He's not coming in right now. He's going to get passed by Carlos Sainz because the Ferrari is the best package of the season. There's Perez, also looking down the inside of his teammate Max Verstappen. No team orders in Red Bull. Jackson retaliates down into turn 1 and takes back the lead. That's exactly what Jackson needed to do. Great stuff there from Jackson. He's back in the lead. Perez is now into second as he passed Sainz. And now Jackson's in trouble because we know that the Red Bull is an ultra strong car in the straight line, probably the strongest this season. And well, now Jackson is in real trouble now as Sainz was going down the outside of Perez, but we cut to a replay instead. Here's the start, and Sainz got the best of it down the inside and took a bit of curb. Maybe that's what gave Jackson the impetus to go back round the outside. Sainz, great racing to give him a car's width. And then he back through, but a great exit from the corner there from Jackson gave him the speed going out of it, and down the straight he goes. So he led, that was great recovery because he lost down initially. There's the dive bomb from Tsunoda. He almost took Esteban Ocon with him. I'm assuming it's Ocon because Alonso is further up the field than Yuki Tsunoda is. That was the P12, I think. Yuki Tsunoda passing Hulkenberg, and here is the scrap for the lead then. Sainz passes Jackson, and Perez comes from so far out and has so much speed with all the slipstream he has from all the cars ahead. Jackson retaliates with a late move down the inside, gave Sainz the room and pushed him a little bit wide possibly, and that gave Perez impetus to go round the inside and take second place, and now he can put Jackson under pressure. Look at that. Listen to these cars. They might not be the loudest cars in Formula 1, but you certainly get a sense of the speed everyone is travelling at in this final sector. We've got Sergio Perez at the end of the second lap, taking the lead from Jackson. Jackson tries to retaliate down the inside. DRS is enabled, and will Jackson get it in the first zone out of the second corner? He might do, you know, because I think the detection point is a little bit further back on for the entry of the second corner. So Jackson should get DRS in this instance. Let's see if he does. And I think he is. We can't really tell from this camera shot, but Jackson's going to go down the inside into turn 3. Oh, it's a tight squeeze, and Perez gives him the room, and Jackson gives him the room as well. Great racing, and Jackson does take back the lead. Wonderfully played by Jackson. I wonder if he is going to kind of play that tactic for the rest of the race, because he knows he can't compete with Red Bull in a straight line, and as we said earlier, the Audi is not the fastest car in the field this season, so maybe Jackson will play a game and really not fight Perez too hard down the final straight, because no one is competing with Red Bull in that instance, unless Jackson got a good exit out of it as he did in qualifying to get pole position. And here's the order into lap 3 then. Jackson leads from Perez, Carlos Sainz is third, Max Verstappen is fourth, but crucially he is ahead of his championship rival Charles Leclerc, so he will be increasing his lead at the moment. Alonso is in a great 5th place and holding off Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc respectively. Then we're followed by the 2 McLarens of Ricciardo and Norris, and George Russell completes the top 10. And then outside the top 10 we've got Esteban Ocon leading from Yuki Tsunoda. Nico Hulkenberg is down to 13th place, followed by Kevin Magnussen. We've got Pierre Gasly in a half sandwich with Schumacher in 16th, Bottas 17th in the Alfa Romeo, ahead of Esteban Ocon, Alexander Albon, and Sebastian Vettel. Zhou Guanyu cannot pass them in 20th place. And we've got Lance Stroll and Nicholas Latifi at the back. Now we're coming on to the beginning of lap 4, and Sergio Perez is going down the inside. He fought with Perez for some time last season. I think he was displaced by Perez for points later on, if I remember rightly. I probably don't. And there we go. Perez takes the lead. But will Jackson, is he going to play that tactic again and get DRS in the first zone down this straight? And he could be well played from Jackson if he is doing that, because he knows, like we said, he can't compete with Red Bull in a straight line usually. But the Audi has got a very good aerodynamic car underneath them, which is strange for Nico Hulkenberg, as he's not really making any inroads on the points at the moment, down in 13th place. Jackson takes back the lead. Well, Jackson has to do that, and if he can't get away, then he might as well stay with them as much as he can. And the question now will be, what will happen at the pit stop phase? We know Audi are great at their pit stops. They've had some of the fastest pit stops of the season, just behind Red Bull, of course. You can just imagine, like, the speed we can see these cars, especially in the final sector. The V10s and the V8s would be absolutely roaring around here if we still had them. It's kind of a shame that we don't, really. Some people say that F1 lost its essence with the loss of those engines, but it is all a bid to be carbon neutral by 2030. That is the target, of course, and we are well on our way if reports to be believed in that. And Max Verstappen just not really having to force his way round, because he is ahead of Leclerc and he's his closest championship rival, followed by Carlos Sainz. And I think we had to have a normal mention for Carlos Sainz because he's really come alive in the last 2 races. He won the Monaco Grand Prix, of course, and maybe he's pushing himself to be the 3rd contender in the championship if he can catch up, but he's probably going to have to win a bit more than he has so far. Meanwhile, at the front for the race win, Sergio Perez. No contest between the Red Bull and the Audi, with the Red Bull's superior straight line speed and DRS and ERS. Sergio Perez takes back the lead, but Jackson once again probably just easing Perez through and getting himself some DRS in the first zone. And there we are again. Look how close he is. Jackson really liking this track and the corners. Particularly, this has been Audi's strongest weekend all round, because we know how Audi have struggled in the corners with their Diva-like car in the corners that Jackson has struggled with. And Yuki Tsunoda is being pushed right to the inside against Hulkenberg. We have 3 wide because Kevin Magnussen is on the outside, and is he going to pass Hulkenberg down the inside? We didn't know what happened with the lead. I think Jackson took it back according to the timing tower, and we have a closely almost contact there between the Haas of Magnussen and the Audi of Hulkenberg. They were certainly not expecting to fight Haas's in the stage of this season. Audi, they're going to be quite surprised. As we said at the top of the show, maybe, will questions be asked of Nico Hulkenberg now, with Jackson leading and possibly on for the win of this race? And as we said, Hulkenberg hasn't scored since Bahrain. It's not all been his fault, mind you, because, you know, he's been stuck in DRS trains and a couple of times he had engine failure. So it's not really been all his fault, to be honest. Jackson was quick to point that out in the drivers' press conferences at the beginning of the weekend. Well, some people were asking Jackson what he thought of possible rumours surrounding his teammate and where he's not getting the best out of the car and Jackson is. Jackson says we both are. And Hulkenberg's just been hugely unlucky, so he's certainly supporting his teammate in through his tough time he's having right now. And as we said, the Audis are definitely a decent enough car to score regular points. What's happening to Nico Hulkenberg? He's definitely one of the best midfield drivers out there, but he's certainly not making the inroads in the points gap as Audi would like. But as Jackson pointed out, it's not really his fault. There was Perez going down the inside, and I think he hit the wall there. Perez hit the wall with his left front tyre. I wonder if there's going to be front wing damage. Did Jackson push him into the wall? I don't think he did. I don't think Perez was alongside the Audi, and the racing guidelines this season require that if you're alongside the car in front, if your nose is alongside maybe the side pod of the car, you're entitled to race a groove. We're about to find out if Jackson gave him that groove going into the first corner. Well, Perez comes from so far out, to be fair. I don't think so. I think Jackson's entitled to the corner, to be honest. He seems mostly ahead by that point. Perez really made his mind up very late there, and he's not ahead of Jackson there. It's perfectly fair from Jackson. I think Perez probably locked up a little bit, and that's why he hit the wall there. It wasn't a very hard hit. It was a brush to the tyre. I think Perez will be fine, to be honest. I don't think he'll have to make a pit stop. We'll find out as we cut back to the racing action. Signs of Verstappen are staying in charge. Now Perez is going to try again with Aiden Jackson. This could be a race-long battle between Jackson and Perez for this one. And these two have had their battles before in Saudi Arabia, if you remember, when they came to blows. And Perez had to change his front wing. Then Perez takes the lead. Lap 7. And we have an almighty scrap for the lead of this race, with Carlos Sainz and Max Verstappen staying in perfect touch at the moment. Was Verstappen there going down the inside of Carlos Sainz? He was. And did he take it? We're not going to cut. We're going to cut to the pit lane because of Kevin Magnussen and Pierre Gasly are in already. Lap 7 is quite early, really. And Gasly's on the soft tyres there, apparently. What is the Haas on? I think it's the mediums. So Kevin Magnussen and Pierre Gasly have probably wore out the tyres already. Straight to the timing tower didn't pick up the fact that Gasly was on the soft tyres, but didn't actually see it. Perez has stayed ahead of Jackson, and Verstappen has beaten Sainz. So we didn't see it because the race director decided to cut to the pit lane instead. Very strange, an early pit stop from Kevin Magnussen and Pierre Gasly. The timing tower at the beginning of the race didn't pick up Gasly on the soft tyres, so that was a strange one. Magnussen coming in really early, considering he was on the mediums, as everyone else goes on. So here was a passing attempt from Jackson. That time he couldn't make the DRS work. Hung it round the outside. Perez just about giving him the width of an Audi and probably a little bit more. And great racing by those two. And Perez finally takes the lead. Now he needs to get out of there sharpish, because Jackson is not going to give it up. And here's Max Verstappen racing side by side with Carlos Sainz. Did he get third? This is how he got third. And look at that. That's the advantage that Red Bull has in a straight line. Sainz having DRS off Perez, and still no match for Max Verstappen. P3 for him, and he's right on the podium and ready to increase his championship lead over Charles Leclerc, because he's still certain that there was contact there. There was a slight brush of the tyre as Sainz decided to hang it in. He hung it in for a lot longer than I thought he would. And now we're going to cut to a battle between Hamilton and Alonso, and there was slight contact there that put Hamilton out of shape. Did Charles Leclerc take the advantage and pass Hamilton? He did, into the chicane. We've got some fantastic racing so far. Contact again. That's down between Hamilton and Leclerc. That'll be relatively harmless, and that's exactly what Leclerc needs to do, because his championship rival and championship leader Max Verstappen is currently third and on course to increase his championship lead, as Jackson finally takes back the lead from Sergio Perez. As long as he's in touch, he's got a chance. Jackson needs to stay with these Red Bulls now, but now he's got two of them all over him, because Max Verstappen is going to be no easy feat, as we know from the world champion Max Verstappen of 2021 then. And Sainz from Alonso. Leclerc now 6th ahead of Hamilton. Both McLarens and George Russell. That's your top 10. Mick Schumacher is trying to make inroads further down the field, as he's trying to pass his good friend Sebastian Vettel for 14th place. And Haas and Alfa Romeo, as we said at the grid rundown, not really showing any pace at all. Alfa Romeo finally getting off the board in terms of points last time out in Monaco, but here they seem even below par, even for that, because Valtteri Bottas is 16th and Zhou Guanyu is 18th. After finally getting past Pierre Gasly and Kevin Magnussen, but bear in mind they had to pit for some reason, and it's really early, as the leaders continue to go on. Aiden Jackson almost to a second ahead of Perez, but I don't think he quite got there. So I think Perez is going to have DRS on Jackson down this long straight. And the Red Bull has certainly been the best in this sector. And once again, look at the closing speed from Perez. Jackson has no chance to defend that. And, well, that is the advantage that Red Bull has in a straight line here. But Jackson is back in the DRS zone. I think he's playing it tactically. He's not fighting Perez in the final straight. He knows he can't fight it, so he waits for the DRS zone to attack again. It looks like he got ahead of Perez yet again. They go side by side almost into turn 3, and nothing doing. Jackson is back in the lead. He's having to fight tooth and claw for this win. He's going to have to earn it today. Audi don't have the best car in the field, and certainly not in a straight line, despite their aerodynamic push so far this season. Their chassis is known to be not the strongest, so that's something maybe they'll be able to work on next year. And certainly that cash incoming from Butler Global when their racing partnership with Connosport starts next year, that will certainly help in the development of the car. And Audi are certainly going to get a big chunk of prize money from being 4th in the constructors at the moment, for Aiden Jackson sadly, because as we said, Hulkenberg hasn't scored since Bahrain, when he scored a 6th place, I think it was. Jackson, of course, had to fight through the field that day as he dropped to the back of the field on lap 1 after a spin after hitting Alonso. And he fought through brilliantly, as he often does. And he's going to have to fight today as well. Lap 9, Jackson leads from both Red Bulls. Carlos Sainz, Fernando Alonso, Charles Leclerc. Lewis Hamilton down in 7th now, ahead of both McLarens and George Russell, his teammate. That completes the top 10 and your point scorers. Now we are back at the front, and Perez once again just showing that outlandish straight line speed. But again, Jackson doesn't fight him too hard. He is playing the tactical game of not fighting Perez too hard and then attacking on the first DRS zone. Jackson knows exactly what he's doing. And there's nothing against it. There's nothing in the rule says you can't. We've had Leclerc and Verstappen do something similar before. I think it was in Saudi Arabia actually. And, Jackson takes back the lead. So despite Red Bull's great advantage in a straight line with DRS and some ERS usage from Jackson, it's certainly a more even contest, and even Jackson coming out the victor in some cases. He's still got a lot of laps left to run, and Jackson's got a lot of time. He'll have to hope that maybe the pit stop phases doesn't throw him out of sync too much, because we know the Audi isn't the strongest. It is a very good car behind other cars though. Some say maybe in clean air they struggle. I think Jackson got a bit out of shape in that corner, but I don't think he's lost too much there. He does gain the gap to just about a second, but not quite. If he could break DRS and Perez, that would really help him, but he can't. That's the objective Jackson needs to try and do. He needs to break the DRS advantage that Perez has. 0.8, Perez will have DRS. These cars would absolutely roar in the V10 and V8 era. You would not be able to hear a thing. The engines would be so loud. And Jackson is coming into the pits on lap 10. So that's early-ish for Jackson. He decides to go with a bit of an undercut maybe, as he's the only leading man to pit. An interesting strategy here from Audi. What will they put on? Probably the hard tyres to go to the end of the race. So Audi trying a different strategy with Jackson, trying to maybe see if he can run in some clean air without having to fight a car in front of him. Let's see if he can take advantage of it. So Audi are rolling the dice here. They know that if they're going to win this race, they need Jackson in as much clean air as possible. And there was a nice gap there to put Jackson into, ahead of Sebastian Vettel, who's fallen quite far behind, sadly. But he is in 14th place. Good effort. 13th place actually for Schumacher. Great effort so far. Vettel, rather. Great effort so far. Gasly has only just caught up to Latifi now. So Magnussen and Gasly have really ruined their own races by coming in so early. Now what do Red Bull do here? They're going to enforce team orders and get Perez out of the way of Verstappen, so to speak. That would be the sensible thing to do. Perez is not really in this title fight yet. Sainz is putting himself in it in his most recent performances. There's still a long racing left to do. There's still a lot of the season left. We're not even at half distance in the season yet. Only round 8 of 22. Would have been 23 with the exclusion of the Russian Grand Prix. Now, it's going to be interesting. Has Verstappen got DRS on Perez here? Or is it going to matter which Red Bull is coming into the pits? I think Verstappen is coming in. He is. So Verstappen is the first to blink at the Red Bulls. They're keeping Perez out there. So maybe Red Bull are reacting. They're not really reacting to Audi then. They're bringing Verstappen in. He's going to get held up by cars coming through the pit lane. But he's not going to really lose any positions in those he's fighting with. And there is Jackson. And I think Verstappen is going to fall behind him. He is. By a long distance. So even though they reacted with Verstappen against Jackson, Jackson's beating him. Now this will be very interesting, because what will Verstappen will not have DRS in his instance, will he? We can't tell, unfortunately. And we've got Stroll in the pits with the hard tyres, and we've also got Yuki Tsunoda in as well. And Alfa Romeo with Bottas, I think it is. So Sebastian Vettel is now running 11th and fighting with Lewis Hamilton for 11th place. I thought it was for 10th, but Hamilton's probably just coming through the field as he pinned. He didn't pass him there though. Schumacher's right in the thick of this. Mick Schumacher's been a very unlucky man this season. We've not really seen a lot of him, sadly. But Haas themselves haven't really done themselves any favours. Although Kevin Magnussen does have a point to his name. In Saudi Arabia, of course. So, Aiden Jackson, has he done enough to lead this race when Perez comes out of the pits? Well, he's broken the DRS of Verstappen, mind you, 1.3. Jackson's certainly comfortable on these hard tyres. So, Will Red Bull keep Perez out for a lap longer, or will they bring him in? They're bringing him in as our Ferrari for Carlos Sainz, I think. And Lando Norris, will he inherit the lead now, or is he coming in? Lightning quick pit work from Red Bull. Carlos Sainz takes the lead, but he's obviously in the pit lane, so Norris is as well. So that means everyone ahead of Jackson's in the pits. Now, here comes Aiden Jackson coming into turn 1. He's already taken the lead according to the timing board. There's Perez, and Jackson leads. Jackson has inherited the lead. Great call by Audi. Verstappen gets out of shape in turn 2, watching out for his teammate. And Perez has DRS again? No. Verstappen does though. Now this is a very crucial part of the race from Jackson. Now he has to try and pull away from these Red Bulls, because they are going to be mighty now. So order has been restored. Charles Leclerc has jumped his teammate. He's now 4th. So the big benefactor of the pit stop phase was Charles Leclerc now. And he needed that with Verstappen in 3rd. Nico Hulkenberg still P12. And as we said, will questions be asked of Hulkenberg here, because Jackson is on course to win at the moment. And Hulkenberg hasn't scored since Bahrain. We don't really want to talk badly about Hulkenberg, and I don't, like we said, it's not really his fault, but he's just not good with it so far. This has been his perfect opportunity to get that seed and lead that team, but Jackson's the one leading the team, and he wasn't even like... he was supposed to be the second driver contracted by Mercedes to do that as part of their engine deal. To that seed, the Audi Conesport announcement will be during the summer break of 2022. So after the Hungarian Grand Prix, we will know more about what this Audi Conesport deal means for Audi's future. It will still be called Audi, mind you. And here we go again. Perez has caught back up to Jackson. And it's going to be a long old race, this one, for Aiden. But he's going to fight it out in turn 1. Brilliantly done. And out of quarters, Jackson is looking mighty. He's finally getting to some grips with that car. Once they get... Audi have got another upgrade package coming in the next few races. Most notably to the chassis department. They know they don't have the strongest chassis out there. And that could attribute to Jackson's handling issues. And watch Audi in the second half of the season, because they could fly. And we'll know more about what this Audi Conesport deal means. It's only on branding for now. It's going to be a secondary brand deal. They're still going to be Audi, but they'll be called Audi Conesport for next year. And of course, they now have Callie Mayer in their development program now with that deal. She's obviously the star athlete at Conesport and making waves in the Formula 3 and Formula 2 seasons, much like her brother Aiden Jackson. They have different surnames, of course. We don't know whether that's because Mayer wants to avoid media attention because her brother is just making waves at the moment. It's very much like what Mick Schumacher did, maybe, when he took his mother's maiden name through his karting days to avoid publicity. And the Schumacher brings its own set of notoriety to your career, and Schumacher really wanted to avoid that early on, but he's handled it like a champ since he came into Formula 2, in particular when he started using the Schumacher name. In fact, he did in Formula 3, the European version, that is. Callie Mayer in a different category to what Schumacher was in, but she's very much matching her brother stride for stride at the moment in the championship fight in F2 this season with the Trident team. She won at the F3 championship with the Trident team. So who's to say that maybe, it's very unlikely, but if Callie does bring herself into the forefront by maybe bettering her performance, her brother's F2 exploits to some degree and winning it, who's to say Audi Conesport won't bring her in? And maybe we could have the Jackson siblings in the same team. That would be very much something to look at, considering that Callie is very, very similar to, in fact, of her overtaking prowess and her resilience and determination that Jackson has shown throughout his career as well, falling to the back in Bahrain, and Silverstone comes to mind. Callie's been doing the same thing. So she is part of the family tree, even if she has got a different surname. But I would certainly love to see it, but Callie's got... I would say Callie's got a bit more of a difficult road. We know how difficult it has been for female drivers to step into this category. The closest that we've had female drivers before. Giorgia Marti in 1992 was the last official entry. But of course, back then there was such a thing as pre-qualifying, and Marti sadly never got past that phase. I think there's rumours saying that Callie is being actually tutored by Jamie Chadwick, which would make sense. Jamie Chadwick has certainly been the closest that we've had to a Formula 1 driver in Formula 1. I suppose the closest to a degree would be Tatiana Calderon, who's been part of F2 in recent years. Unfortunately, she hasn't really made the strides that Callie is making in Formula 2 at the moment. We have a battle here between the Red Bulls. We've been talking so much about other things. Max Verstappen is going down the inside of Sergio Perez. And there is Charles Leclerc. So he's caught the Red Bulls. Charles Leclerc is flying in this phase of the race. He's absolutely on it at the moment. Charles Leclerc has come alive. And now he's right up there with Perez and Verstappen. Can he beat Verstappen for the first time in a few races? Here's Perez, not really in the championship fight as of yet, but now he's fallen a second behind Jackson, as I think he's starting to stretch his legs. Jackson is starting to find his form, and he's broken the DRS range of the Red Bulls. Jackson is coming alive on these hard tyres now. The Audi really prefers, I would say, the harder of the compounds of tyres, because Jackson seems to be a lot better, especially when it comes to the hards. I think that was the case in Spain, wasn't it? Like, Jackson was better on the hard tyres, and now the case here. Jackson really likes the harder tyre. I think it's because he can throw the car about a bit more without wearing his tyres too much. A very similar style to Michael Schumacher and Max Verstappen in particular. The question now is, what can Charles Leclerc do about the Red Bulls ahead? One of them is his championship rival in Max Verstappen. And still no team orders enforced at Red Bull, but all the while Jackson's getting away. In fact, not quite, because Jackson's lost half a second somewhere in the first couple of corners. I think Jackson is just trying to avoid fishtailing that car and dropping it in the wall, which makes sense. Got 9 laps to go. Jackson is still leading and kind of pegging the Red Bulls behind him now. We finally cut to some racing action. We've got Magnussen passing Bottas just to compound matters at Alfa Romeo. Now they're behind both Haas drivers, and something needs to be done at Alfa Romeo because they are certainly not up to snuff this season. Maybe your Audi are looking at this and going, we made the right choice bringing through our own car instead, because Alfa is the Sauber team still in its DNA, running under the Alfa Romeo name, which I think concludes at the end of next year. Audi was supposed to come through the year after that as a strategic partner of some kind, but now they've ended a branding partnership with Connosport. What will become of Sauber now? Will they try and extend the Alfa Romeo deal, perhaps? Will we lose Sauber from the grid before 2026? That would be a very terrible shame. The long-standing team owner Peter Sauber, who's been an absolute icon in the Formula 1 world. Fledgling outfit, always punching above its weight in the 90s and the 2000s. Before becoming Alfa Romeo in 2017. And and giving rise to such prominent drivers like Charles Leclerc in 2018, of course. They've done wonders for this sport. Peter Salvo was, of course, team principal of some kind to the great Michael Schumacher back in his sports car days before he made his Formula 1 debut in Spa in '91. So Peter now is about talent and he knows how to spot it. And Zhou Guanyu has definitely been the latest of that. Unfortunately, the car has just not been up to snuff this season to prove his talents. Zhou Guanyu, to be fair, will get a fair crack at it at some point. I don't think he's scored yet. Sadly, but Alfa Romeo have struggled to score. Did he score in Monaco? I think he scored in Monaco. But he'll get it sooner than later. Zhou Guanyu is just not here just to make up the numbers. A lot of people did have him penciled down as a pay driver. I think it's a very unfair criticism for a man that's been the Ferrari and Alpine academies in the past. Zhou Guanyu has certainly got some talent. If you're being scouted by Ferrari in your days, you certainly have something to do in the world of motorsport. And now here he is at the pinnacle of it. And Jackson still trying to fend off the might of the Red Bulls and doing a spectacular job. But now Perez has closed within a second again, and here we are resuming battle. Aiden Jackson giving Perez the room and flying back down the outside. He seems to really like that corner, especially through the exit. And he got a great exit. And now we're into turn 2, side by side. And now Max Verstappen is lurking in the background. Now this could be real trouble for Jackson now, because he's not let Perez through to gain DRS. He's going to get absolutely swamped. Only by Perez, mind you. But Jackson needs to stay as close as he can. He's fighting hard, Jackson, just like he did last year. The difference though is that here it's just, last year it was just for a measly point or two. This is for the race win, which will be the second in the phenomenal career of Aiden Jackson. Will he be looking over his shoulder at his sister perhaps? That would be quite something. Certainly knows of what she's been doing. What a great thought it would be, even though it's probably a whiles off yet, because of how the F1 world works. But what a way it would be if we were to see the two Jackson siblings in the same car. Well, if Callie does her part, she certainly could be considered for it, especially with the Audi Connosport deal going ahead. And now she's in Audi's development program. No doubt Jackson is tutoring her at some point. Aiden, that is. And that's the great thing about Baku. You can see the cars on the other side of the circuit if you get the right camera angle. And now we are down the straight. Now Jackson, this is the first time he's going to have DRS down this straight. And look, he's struggling a lot more than Perez is, but still he tries. Going to go round the outside. So that's the power of the Red Bull for you. It's so strong in the third sector. But here is where Jackson is strongest, and this time he's right behind Sergio Perez, having to take to the outside as Perez goes defensive. There's Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen going side by side as well. This is for the championship, and Charles Leclerc is going to get ahead, I guess. We still want to fight for the lead. Jackson's taking it back, and Max Verstappen out of shape, and Charles Leclerc has taken third. And finally, Charles Leclerc is back ahead of Max Verstappen. There's been a few races. Max has won 2 of the last 3, and Charles Leclerc had a bit of a low one in Monaco, although to be fair, he didn't finish the Monaco Grand Prix in his previous attempt, so he was happy just to finish it. Jackson is fighting tooth and claw with cars much more better than his, and he's coming out on top, very much like he did in his Haas days. Charles Leclerc, he did not lead the championship at the end of this race if the order stays as it was. The question now is, how does Max Verstappen retaliate and repass him maybe? And we've lost... Have we lost Fernando Alonso? No, he's 7th, so Alonso lost out to Sainz and Hamilton. And he was ahead of... Well, not Sainz, but he was ahead of Hamilton before the pit stops come in, so Alonso's lost the position. George Russell has gained up to 8th now ahead of both McLarens. We have had some movers in the pit stop phase. With Schumacher sitting in 13th behind his good friend Sebastian Vettel. Nico Hulkenberg is still 12th. And 2 seconds behind the Alpine of Ocon, who Audi should be rather equal with. As Jackson takes back the lead. Well, how about this? A 4-car scrap for the lead, and Hamilton's not too far behind either in 5th. It's going to be an almighty scrap for the end of this race, and Jackson is having to fight everyone around him at the moment. Hamilton just 1 second behind Max Verstappen. Can he get within a second and unlock DRS? He would need it against Sainz. He's done very well to keep Sainz behind, to be fair. Hamilton's done very well indeed. And there is Magnussen fighting with Lance Stroll. And that really rubs salt in the wounds at Alfa Romeo behind both Haas drivers now. Zhou and Bottas having a very below par race by their standards. Bottas in particular. 4 seconds behind his teammate, Zhou Guanyu there, according to the time tower. Jackson is now broken out to a second ahead of Perez. So he's getting back on it again. Maybe there was a bit of a grading phase that Jackson was in. That was really killer in the Spanish Grand Prix for him. But he still managed to finish second. And this is exactly what Jackson needs. A second and a half to Sergio Perez now. But such is the straight line speed advantage of the Red Bull. He could probably close it up as Perez is doing now. 5 temps. He's got back within a second, Perez. That car in a straight line is absolutely mighty. That even Audi's aerodynamic push can't beat them on a normal day. But he certainly is trying, Aiden Jackson, isn't he? Did he gain the second? He did. So Perez now is going to come under threat from Charles Leclerc, of all people, who was nowhere at the start. Well, nowhere near Verstappen anyway. Now he's ahead of him. And now Hamilton and Leclerc, and I think even Alonso. No, Hamilton Sainz, sorry, not Leclerc. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, separated by just 3 or 4 seconds. Jackson's making a bit of a train behind him, but I don't think he's going to care one bit. As long as he's crossing the line first. Well, he's trying to peg the gap to Perez. He's doing his mightiest, Aiden Jackson. Sporting a different helmet design since Monaco. Sticking with it. Definitely see the Audi and the better it feels in the corners for Jackson. It's more out of traction that Audi have really struggled with in the handling department this year. Certainly not up to Jackson's liking, but he's making the best of it. The deficiencies of the car, Jackson is making a heck of a difference driving it. Just about 5 laps from the end. Here comes Charles Leclerc. He's closing on Perez, but he's not going to be close enough for a move into turn 1. And Perez is definitely in the best car to battle Charles Leclerc here, and he needs to do Max Verstappen a favour because this DRS train is not aiding anybody at the moment. The big benefactor could be Charles Leclerc if he passes Perez, though. Maybe it'd be down to him to challenge Aiden Jackson for the win. Leclerc getting a... Oh, we got a big, good, great exit out of turn 2 there, or turn 3. Now they're side by side. Now Charles Leclerc is battling with Verstappen, and he looks at Perez, and he's got it. Sergio Perez has been passed by Charles Leclerc, and while these two are all fighting, Jackson is finding the space in his legs. He's stretching his legs, 2.8. Aiden Jackson is now on course to win Audi's first Grand Prix in just their 8th round. So, Perez, he locked up. That's what happened then. Perez has been struggling with his brakes so far this season. Contact. And I think that'll be harmless. And Perez now Down to 4th. He's gone behind Verstappen. Has he got a broken front wing? Maybe. He has. He's coming in to change it. So Perez's battle with Leclerc gave him damage. And now he's going to have to change the front wing. So it's going to be an almighty scrap between Leclerc and Verstappen for either Leclerc closing in to Verstappen's championship lead, which would be almost unassailable at this current moment, or Verstappen to extend it even further. That puts Hamilton in 4th, and that puts Hulkenberg in 11th, still nowhere near the points. This is 3 seconds behind Esteban Ocon. Oh man, what must Audi be thinking? Jackson is on course to win, and Hulkenberg hasn't scored since Bahrain. And I'll be bringing it up a lot during the course of this race, but questions will be asked of why is Hulkenberg not getting the better out of his car, and Jackson is about to become a race winner in it. Well, let's be fair, this is one of Jackson's stronger circuits. He arrived as a star here last season with a phenomenal start in which he passed 5 drivers.
Perez has just pitted behind you for a front wing change. It is all clear behind you now, mate. 2 seconds to Leclerc. Bring this home. I got it, buddy. Copy that.
He's got it. Aiden Jackson wants radio silence, I guess. That means, I've got it, buddy. Radio silence to the end. I will bring this home, he says. Aiden Jackson, 2.1 clear. With Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. 2 laps to go. Well, this is the most comfortable Jackson has looked all season with this car. He's been at one with it all day and all weekend, really. And the future is looking so bright for Audi. A magnificent first 7 races, podiums, multiple podiums, all with Jackson, and some points for Hulkenberg too in Bahrain. Now the recent announcement of the brand partnership with Sport, a famed outfit in the Grid World Series. They're no slouches, Sport. Started in the world of tennis back in the humble days of 2004, founded by Andre O'Connor, a tennis brand for the top tennis players at the time. Grid World Series winners and competitors, now an F1 team next season through Audi Sport F1 team, who will now be race winners at the end of 2 laps from now. Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen battle for supremacy in the championship, with Charles Leclerc finally getting ahead of Verstappen for the first time in a few races. We were talking earlier about Sainz getting his mojo back and getting back ahead of Leclerc for the last few races, but Leclerc was hit back today. And now all he needs to do is keep Verstappen behind for one more tour. Perez, sadly, is out of the running. Is he catching Hulkenberg for 12th? It's going to be rather academic, unfortunately, although I think Hulkenberg has closed the gap to Ocon a little bit. Final lap. Aiden Jackson leads by 2.8 seconds ahead of the battling Leclerc and Verstappen. Let's see if Verstappen can pass Leclerc with DRS here. We know the supremacy of the Red Bull car in a straight line, but it's not going to be enough. And he had a little there for Verstappen, but decided against it. This is his championship rival. He doesn't want to risk taking them both out or worse off himself. He knows he's the leader, and he'll be the leader at the end of the afternoon, no matter what, if the positions stay this way, of course. Which they look like doing, because Jackson is just controlling it at the front. There he is. Aiden Jackson made a star name for himself here last season in an uncompetitive Haas, almost dragged it to a points finish. He did a race later in France, and then the race after in Silverstone he scored another. And then the fairy tale at Monza, in which he won against the odds. And now he's winning on his terms. Aiden Jackson, round the last corner, This time, it's not against the odds. This time, it's on his terms. Aiden Jackson is about to become a winner once again. His second in Formula 1 and in the first for Audi Sport F1 team. One more King corner and then he'll be able to see the checkered flag. Aiden Jackson wins the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Audi are winners in Formula 1 at the 8th time of asking. One even meant to stay. Audi have had a magnificent first 7 races and a magnificent time morale-wise with their Consport partnership. Now they're F1 Grand Prix winners. Jackson is back on the top step.
P1 mate, never doubted you. Aiden Jackson, you are a Grand Prix winner. The first for Audi. Well done, mate. Very well played. I told you. Yes. Thank you, boys. You finally did. And this is just the beginning. Yes.
He knew it. He saw it coming. And he's done it. He's delivered on his promise. Aiden Jackson is a winner in Formula 1 again. And boy, is everyone happy with that result. Maybe he doesn't need Mercedes after all. He can win in another team, which Mercedes put him in due to their engine partnership. And we've been all talking about how Jackson was probably snubbed by almost everybody, but maybe he didn't need it. He's proven today that he may not need a top seat after all, because Audi is not a top seat at the moment, but the future is looking ever brighter. Aiden Jackson scores the 25 points and is a Grand Prix winner for a second time. Charles Leclerc just beating Verstappen over the line. I think we just saw Verstappen pulling out to try a last ditch move. It didn't come off. He's third behind his championship rival. Hamilton fourth ahead of Sainz. Russell, Alonso, Norris, Ricciardo and Ocon are your point scorers. Hulkenberg finishes ahead of Perez, but yet again he's out of the points. But it's even worse for Alfa Romeo, who don't even beat neither Haas driver today. Schumacher's showing as a DNF for some reason, but we saw him at the track at the end. Probably a strange small bug with the game or something. And that has brought the championship lead for Verstappen down to 7 points now. Charles Leclerc has definitely hit back. But the middle of the season is where Max is strongest. So maybe it's just a small red herring. And Aiden Jackson is now up to 4th. He's got ahead of Hamilton in the championship standings with that result. And well, he's Mercedes reserve driver, but now he's ahead of both of them, racing for another team. You can't write this stuff. Ferrari lead by 40 in the Constructors' Championship as they continue to have a stranglehold on it. Will Audi catch Mercedes? Doesn't look likely, sadly, but you never know. But they're certainly in the mix for top 3. Well, in a week where their brand partnership with Consport was announced and looking big towards next season, today they're big as they stand on the top step with Aiden Jackson a winner again. He saw it coming. He knew it was coming. He's delivered on it. Audi Sport F1 team are winners again, or winners for the first time at least in their first season. The sky's the limit for these guys, and maybe if Jackson is right, it won't be the last. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time when Formula 1 returns.